458 BCE, Mount Algidus, 30 kilometers southeast of Rome. Thousands of Roman legionaries were completely surrounded. Only 5 cavalrymen broke through the encirclement. The news they brought threw Rome into terror. The Senate had to make an immediate decision. They had to suspend the consulship and appoint a dictator, giving absolute power to one person. But the name the Senate designated was someone no one had expected. A former consul who had lost all his wealth due to his son's murder charge, living in a hut on the outskirts of Rome, tilling a small field. When the senators found him, he was plowing his field. The curly-haired farmer. His name was Lucius Quinctius Cincinnatus. Cincinnatus's family, the Quinctia clan, was a distinguished house of royal bloodline from Alba Longa, a lineage that existed even before Rome's founding. He too had served as consul, completing his one-year term without incident. But he had a troublesome matter. His son Caeso, an excellent soldier, but with a fiery temper. His fists came before his words. At that time, Roman plebeians were demanding the codification of laws. Led by Tribune Terentilius, they sought to limit the power of the nobility.
We demand written law. Let the law be carved for all to see.
Caeso could not tolerate this. Leading his followers, he attacked the forum and beat the tribunes.
If you step out of line one more time, I'll kill you.
Plebeian Marcus Volscius cried out that Caeso had unjustly killed his sickly younger brother. A trial was held.
My son was only trying to stop the riot. He acted in self-defense.
Cincinnatus made his defense, but it came to nothing. Cincinnatus urgently sent his son into exile in Etruria. As expected, a death sentence was handed down at the trial, and a massive fine was imposed on Cincinnatus. He had to pay his son's bail with his land deeds, his entire fortune, the mansion by the Tiber River, the farm in Latium. Wealth accumulated over 3 generations, all vanished. He became penniless, but he remained composed. He had decided to follow the law. Cincinnatus and his wife Rasilia crossed the Tiber River. 1 hectare of barren land west of the river was all that remained. The hands that once held a sword now held a plow. Glory had ended and power had vanished. In 458 BCE, a great crisis struck Rome. A large force of the Aequi from east of Rome invaded. Rome had imposed a humiliating treaty a year earlier, and they had come for revenge. Their target was Tusculum, Rome's allied city. Consul Minucius Augerinus led the legions into battle. But arrogance was also a harbinger of downfall. Upon arriving at the foothills of Mount Algidus, Minucius ordered the army to make camp. The soldiers were exhausted, and he judged they could fight tomorrow. But Aequi scouts were watching every movement. On the night when the Roman army slept, thousands tightened the encirclement. By the time the Romans realized what was happening, it was already too late. On every mountaintop, thousands of warriors stood, their spear points aimed downward. It was a perfect encirclement.
How many are the enemy?
Thousands, sir.
Where are they?
On the ridge, approaching fast.
Minucius ordered his 5 elite cavalrymen break through the encirclement and deliver this news to Rome. 2 fell, and only 3 managed to reach Rome's gates. The Senate was in shock. The other consul, Nautius, was engaged in battle with the Sabines. Silence fell.
This cannot be true. How could this happen? We must act now, but at what cost? There is only one solution. We must appoint a dictator.
And one person shouted,
I nominate Cincinnatus as dictator of Rome. He is the right man for this crisis.
The Senate sought out Cincinnatus.
Consul, we have words for you. It is time for you to step forward. Then there will be no sowing this year.
His actions were lightning fast.
I did not seek this power. I accepted it for the safety of our republic. We fight not for glory, but for Rome.
The next day, he appointed Lucius Tarquitius as master of the horse, a warrior with no political ambition, a perfect choice. And he went before the assembly and issued a firm command.
All able-bodied men are to prepare 5 days' provisions and assemble before sunset.
That night, without drums or trumpets, thousands quietly left the city. All walked and walked toward Mount Algidus. They had to hurry for a surprise attack, even if it meant marching all night. And at dawn that day, Cincinnatus's army arrived at Mount Algidus. The Aequi were still surrounding the Roman legion. Cincinnatus's army had arrived. He ordered his soldiers to drive stakes into the ground. They dug trenches behind the Aequi camp and established an encirclement. The Aequi were confident that victory was only a matter of time. As the sun rose,
Today, Rome stands unbroken. By your courage, the Republic endures.
the surrounded Roman army took courage from that sound and launched a counterattack. The battlefield was consumed by madness. Cincinnatus raised his sword high from behind the trenches. The Roman legionaries rose up in unison. The Roman army that had been surrounded inside heard that battle cry. Flames ignited in the eyes of the exhausted soldiers. The Roman army fought with every ounce of their strength. The sound of weapons dropping could be heard here and there. The enemy commander, Gracchus Cloelius, thrust his sword into the ground. It was a sign of surrender.
Stand firm. Throw forward. I surrender. I will never challenge Rome again.
Cincinnatus imposed humiliating conditions. The Roman army planted 2 spears in the ground and hung a 3rd spear low between them. This action is called jugum in Latin. The defeated Aequi warriors had to crawl under it like livestock, and chains were placed on the leader Cloelius and his generals. Cincinnatus had routed the enemy in less than 2 weeks. More than 5 months and 10 days remained of his term as dictator. The army worshipped him, and the people exalted him. Cincinnatus could have reigned like a king, but defying everyone's expectations.
I now lay down the office of dictator. I have fulfilled my duty.
It was only 16 days after taking office, and he crossed the Tiber River and returned to his own field. 20 years later, in 439 BCE, he was appointed dictator. Once again, a plot had been discovered that plebeian Spurius Maelius was buying the loyalty of poor citizens with money to make himself king. Cincinnatus was already in his 80s, but he ended the crisis in just 21 days, and once again laid down his dictatorship. Machiavelli wrote, "In Rome, at that time, poverty was considered honorable. The fact that an excellent man like Cincinnatus thought 1 hectare of land was sufficient clearly demonstrates this." George Washington, one of the founding fathers of the United States, admired Cincinnatus. Washington could have become king after the Revolutionary War, but he laid down power and returned to his farm. He even founded the Society of the Cincinnati and served as its first president. Cincinnatus protected democracy by laying down power. He was a true dictator who safeguarded democracy